Welcome to Beans and Breakdowns, a podcast dedicated to specialty coffee and the heavy music community. Today I'm joined by Kevin Veitinger, also known as Rev Kev. He is the drummer of the dad punk band Jeff Two Names and was a founder of the Foundry, a staple of the Savannah coffee and student community. So grab a cup of coffee and wake the fuck up! Welcome to Beans and Breakdowns. Thank you so much, Kevin, A.K.A. Rev Kev, A.K.A. the punk rock priest.
Yes, that's me.
Yes.
It's good to be here, man. It's good to see your face. It's been a long time.
I know. It's been more than a year.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, this is great. I'm super happy to get to talk to you and catch up. Starting out, what beans do you have on your side? We're talking about coffee. We're talking about music.
Yeah. So I've got the bag's empty, but I kept the bag in its original Alphabet City.
Nice.
Which is 9th Street Roasting out of New York City. There's a shop that I go to a lot just down the road called First Village Coffee in Ossining, New York. And they don't do any of their own roasting. So they sell local roasters. And so I'm trying this for the first time. There's also in the little town on the opposite side of us in Ossining, there's a place called Coffee Labs, and they do all their own roasting. And their coffee is fabulous. It reminds me of James's coffee at Cup to Cup in Savannah. Same flavor profiles and stuff. But First Village, the coffee shop really kind of has the vibe that the Foundry did. And I've gotten to know the owner, and we're kind of like kindred spirits. So I go there a lot.
That's awesome. Yeah, that was actually, you answered my follow-up to the what are you drinking is the favorite coffee shop.
Yeah.
So
yeah, First Village is great. The thing that I tried to do at the Foundry was create a community. It wasn't just about the coffee. And, the customer service and that building of relationships was always really important. So First Village has the same kind of perspective, and the owner does a lot of collabs with artists, with other local businesses. And he's just, you go in there, he knows everybody by name. So, it's kind of, it's my vibe. And so I love it. But Absolutely. I do have my Foundry coffee mug with a picture of some of my wonderful staff.
Yes.
In our fighting gear, we all had weapons. I had this great idea that it would be really funny if all the coffee shops in Savannah did like a video montage, kind of like the Anchorman thing, where all the different news crews came and fought, but no one else would get along with it. So, but we did our picture. So,
I think I would have paid to see that in Forsyth. Just, you guys and the Foxy Coffee Fox crew and Perk, but Perk would be like 3 people. Just all battling.
Hilarious.
Yeah. Oh man. Well, I am drinking a coffee from Onyx Roasters, which is out of Arkansas. I'm lucky enough. I drink Montreal roasters usually when I do the podcast, because we have a million roasters here. But I've been wanting to try Onyx for so long, and I found it at a shop here somehow. So.
Yeah, I've actually seen Onyx in, where did I found it here, and I got it at a grocery store, maybe at a weird grocery store. But
okay.
Anyway, so yeah, I've had Onyx before. Good stuff.
It's amazing. A lot of my friends in the coffee world are like posting about it like crazy.
Cool.
But this is a tropical weather. It's 2 Ethiopians. One is washed and one is natural, and it's just super fruity. Like one of the notes is like peach iced tea. So
that's fun.
It's definitely a super citrusy, fruity summertime afternoon coffee. Yeah,
I get mine. My wife Ginger drinks, just straight up. We do a French press in the morning, but I make my own cold brew in a toddy. And so when I get my beans, I try to get just a very general blend, just so it's, real well-rounded cold brew. So she's stuck with whatever I get. Every once in a while, I remember that it's not just me drinking coffee and I get her something fun. But this Alphabet City has been real good for the cold brew. And then, like I said, the coffee at Coffee Labs is their, so they're kind of a play on words thing. Their logo is a dog, a lab. Mm-hmm. But so they have a doghouse blend and it's perfect for cold brew. I love it.
Is it like a South American and an African usually blended? Yeah.
That's awesome. Almost always the thing. Every once in a while, I love to get an Ethiopian and use that for cold brew. I go through my son's at home. He graduated from NYU last year and he's at home while COVID calms down and he's got a job and working from home. But we go through a lot more cold brew than when it was just me.
Yeah. We basically do everything on a V60.
V60 is, to me, just a very simple, intelligent way to make coffee.
It's super easy to reproduce the same recipe over and over, which is why I like it. Because when I get a new bean, I can try my recipe and you really get a taste of what anything, it's like listening to music. Once you have your reference tracks,
right? That's
like on a V60. Once you have your recipe, it's all just references. So
yeah, that's funny. I was talking to somebody the other day about reference tracks, about is there a song that I use to like try out new stereos? I'm like, yeah. Old Smashing Pumpkins song.
Yeah. Off of Gish?
No, off of Gish is great, but off the second album, Pisces Iscariot. No, that was the third album.
Siamese Dream.
The song Quiet.
Oh yeah.
It starts with a really, kind of a chunk of drum fill, and then the guitars slide in, and Billy Corgan recorded like 20 guitars or something stupid. They're so layered. When the guitars come in, I can really feel what the sound system's going to be like. And that's my reference. So right. I know, anyway.
It's funny, a reference, because I'm in a job where I'm EQing a lot of theaters.
Oh, okay.
And so I introduced my coworker to reference tracks. And my first thing I ever play on a PA or a stereo is I Will Remember by Toto. It has nothing to do with hardcore or punk or anything. But it's because there's all the frequencies are there and I know what it sounds like.
Right. But, and that's the thing. I mean, I grew up, I'm an early 90s kid and I grew up with playing the Smashing Pumpkins on tapes until I wore the tapes out and would have to buy another one until CDs came out and it was this beautiful thing, which no one even knows what that is anymore. But, but yeah, so it's been, that album, Siamese Dream, has been my reference for what a good mix is like. And so I played in a grunge band in high school and college, kind of on the more metal side of grunge. And so when I switched over to punk, it was like a really crazy, I loved it. It's just so different. It was just a very different feel, and recording punk, it was so different than how we recorded in the 90s, crazy grunge music.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's instead of the grunge layering and making everything really big, the punk is just how fast can we play this song?
Right. It's just straightforward. Let's get through it and move on.
Yes. We don't have any money to record, so let's just get the recording done as fast as possible.
That's right. And we recorded a song during the beginning of all the quarantine because somebody in Savannah wanted local bands to write songs about quarantine. So we literally did it on, I think it was one of those like things you plug into your phone that like Shure makes, and it's basically a microphone to attach to your iPhone, and man, it came out really good. I was like, why have we paid money to record? We could just do this. We're a punk band. Why does it matter?
Yeah, that's a lot of people have figured out that's so easy because you don't have a lot of phasing issues. You don't have to overmix. It's literally you hear exactly what it is.
Yep. Yeah.
So getting into recording and Jeff Two Names, I saw you guys have a Savannah show coming up.
We do.
Opening for Antagonizers?
Yep. Yeah, they out of Atlanta. And then they're touring with a band called Patriot, which I don't know anything about. Maybe I do. I'm just old and I've seen them and I forgot. But Bo, we've played with Antagonizers before. Bo's a really good dude, the singer. They're a little bit more on the hardcore end of punk than us. But the punk community up and down the East Coast is just pretty chill, and everybody pretty much gets along regardless of your style. So yeah, man, I had planned, I needed a vacation, and so planned to go back to Savannah anyway. And I called Jeff. I'm like, all right, here's my dates that I'm in town. We have to book a show. Cause I never got like a going away show kind of thing. And honestly, we planned on continuing to do our summer and winter tours anyway, even with all of us kind of far flung. But yeah, it was, super simple to hook up a show that we were looking at the 18th at a couple different places, and the Antagonizers had already booked the Wormhole. And Gil, if you remember Gil from the Jinx, he got involved. He was like, well, they're playing, why don't you just hook up with them? We're like, okay, that was easy. But the only catch is when Gil books a show for us, he has to come on and sing a couple songs with us. So
yeah, like a Bouncing Souls cover.
Always a Bouncing Souls cover. Always.
I'll never forget that Halloween show when y'all did the Bouncing Souls and Gil's just yelling like Bouncing Souls.
It's so funny. Gil is, this big tough ex-Marine guy. He has the worst stage fright. Like, we had to convince him to come out on stage. He's like, nah, man, you're going to have to do without me. And I'm like, no, none of us know the words, dude. And so we had to convince him.
But then like when you're in the bar, he's just walking around like he knows he's slapping everybody on the back. Like
he does know everybody.
Yeah.
And so it's really funny but that's how performing is, you feel very naked, very exposed, and certainly being the lead singer, I have the drums to kind of shield me
exactly
physically and kind of metaphorically. But man, when you're out there and you just have a microphone, and that's a lot.
It's awkward.
And if I remember that year, the bands were really good. And so it was like, oh. there was a band that used to practice at the garage that they were a Nirvana cover, and they nailed it. Was so good. And it was so good. And like Nirvana's like, that was like my band that like, everybody, a lot of adolescents have like the band that like changed everything for them. Nirvana was for me. Like my freshman year in high school, Nevermind came out. And I'd been listening to all kinds of music from Metallica to, I don't know, like Bob Dylan and the Beatles. Mm-hmm. And then Nirvana came out, and it was like, oh, this is what music's supposed to sound like. So like I had a great time. And then the next year, their drummer, they wanted to do it again, and their drummer had moved, and they asked me to do it. And I thought we were going to play. And then that fell through at the last minute. And I was so mad because I could have done Nirvana. I'm like, I wouldn't even have had to practice. Like I know all those songs have to practice, but I know all those songs by heart. So I missed my chance to do the Nirvana covers with them. And that was disappointing.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
So are there any things in the future? I know you talked about still doing the tours and everything. Are you guys being able to write like while separated?
It's tough. I mean, Jeff does most of the writing anyway. That was kind of how we worked out how we started. It was really, honestly, Jeff and I got together to talk about doing music probably 2 years before we started playing together. And it was always this thing kind of like, we want to do this. We have to find the right person to play with because we want it to be fun. But at the same time, we don't want it to be like, we want to take it serious enough that, we practice and try to sound okay. Mm-hmm. As good as we ever have sounded. Right. But it had to be fun. And so we finally found the right person. Since then we've gone through we're like the Spinal Tap of bass players. We have like 4 or 5 bass players, which is it's very comical. But Jeff had always written the music, and so he's written a few things, but he's been doing kind of a side project or another project with Petey and Bill. We call him Punk Rock Bill. He's playing the drums, and it's really great. It's definitely Jeff's kind of style. He definitely has a style. Petey's been writing stuff too, but it's a sci-fi kind of thing. I think it's kind of like a They're from Outer Space kind of thing.
Okay.
It is great. And so he's been putting a lot of energy into that. And like I said, our plan was to do some touring during this after Christmas. All of our jobs kind of die after Christmas for a few weeks. And so we were going to do that and then do a summer tour. But COVID's made things different. I have some friends up here that we knew from touring. There's a really amazing girl, Freya Wilcox, that we played with up here that she does Freya Wilcox on the Howl, but she kind of gets different drummers to kind of fill in. She has mostly the same bass player. So she and I have talked about me filling in some. And I'm just looking forward that our buddies, the Jukebox Romantics, are up here in Westchester.
Okay.
They're amazing. And I've just been excited to hang out with Terry, kind of the lead singer guy. And they finally have a show the week after I get back. And so I'm really excited to go watch them play. There's some ideas down the pike, but we certainly haven't written anything new. The newest song we have is our quarantine song that we only played once. So it might as well be new. Everything's going to be new to us. We haven't played together in a year. So
yeah, I still can't believe that y'all are having shows again. Like we're still wild. We're a ways away.
Well, we're a ways away. I mean, that's Florida. There's been shows down in Florida for 2 months already. Georgia, we'll see how this goes. It'll be interesting to see what it's like in Savannah. Up here, I think some of the shows that are happening are outside. And so that's a little different. But it'll be at least the fall before things pick back up. But I'm starting to see big tours booking shows in like mid to late fall in New York. So yeah.
Everything here is like November, late October. So I think we're about on the same speed up here. Yeah. The South is a different story. We won't get into that, but
like the Teenage Bottle Rockets are going on tour, and I love those guys, and they're doing. It's like they're avoiding the Northeast. It's like all the places like Texas and the South, and they're even playing my hometown of Tallahassee, Florida, which is bizarre. And I mean, it's a college town, and they're playing at this place that we played, but it's like a vegan restaurant, but they have a lot of shows, but not like, I don't think there was a stage. So I don't even know how the Teenage Bottle Rockets are going to do this show at this place, but I wish I could be there to experience it.
Yeah, I can't wait for some shows to come back.
Yeah. Sydney she's already like, we're looking at the shows and the lists and seeing what's on the horizon. Motion City Soundtrack is coming, and I've never been able to see them. And, they're kind of they haven't put out a lot of stuff lately, but man, it would be fun to see them.
Super nostalgic.
Yeah, exactly.
So you had mentioned the Foundry earlier, and the comparison between the shop that you have there. The Foundry was one of my favorite coffee shops in Savannah.
Thank you.
Which means a lot because it was like one of 10 coffee shops in the small town.
and there's more now, by the way.
Yeah,
the Foundry's closed, but there's other ones that have popped up.
And it was a super important staple in the community amongst the students. Like you said, it wasn't just a coffee shop; it was a community, kind of a safe space in the community for students.
Right.
What led you to be a part of that? Was it the love of coffee, the love of, just community in general?
Yeah, I mean, I think what led me to it. So I took a couple years hiatus from ministry, got really burned out. Ministry can be very tough, especially as a kind of progressive guy in the Southeast. Ministry can be extra tough sometimes. And so I was working at Starbucks, just trying to figure out what was next for me. And I started to realize, even at Starbucks, and this was in Savannah before Foxy, really, the Sentient Bean was really the only local place. There was this place called Metro Coffee House, where the Cuban restaurant is on MLK.
Okay, yeah.
There was actually a coffee shop in there when we first moved to Savannah. But really, I mean, Starbucks was the coffee shops. And so I worked at the one right on Bull and Broughton, and I realized the capacity for community at coffee shops. I realized, for me, ministry is about building relationships and building community. It's about a lot of stuff, but that's kind of the foundation of it and how it happens. And so I realized the best two ways to build relationships and community is either over a cup of coffee or a glass of beer. And so I was working in the Methodist Church, and starting a bar was not on the table in the United Methodist Church. Now I'm Episcopalian, and I totally could have started a bar, but that's neither here nor there. So, I started having this vision of what this community space would be like with coffee as the way that paid for it to happen. Honestly, coffee was kind of secondary. I loved coffee, and I wanted the coffee to be really great. And fortunately, I'd met James along the way. And so all of that was taken care of. Like, I didn't have to worry about having good coffee because James is a phenomenal roaster, and he believed in my vision and came in and trained all my people. So I didn't have to know or really even think much about the coffee. I could focus on the development of community. And so, really the idea was to create a safe place, like you said, for students, to be kind of a paradigm shift for a lot of folks who had experienced anything connected to the church as being negative, as being judgmental, and creating a place where people could kind of be in this place that everybody knew was owned by the Methodist Church, and everybody knew that this weird tattooed pastor guy was in charge, but they could go and they could feel safe. And, I fed everybody pancakes on Fridays for free Flapjack Fridays. And we had our Wednesday night discussion groups with Michael Cheney, good old Padre Cheney and I.
Oh, yeah.
And that's really what it was all about. And then letting students use the space, that back room we used for, we had art up on the walls. We had a game design group come and use it for something. It was just, A.A. used it. Narcotics Anonymous used it. It got used by all sorts of different groups. And it was all about the community.
A lot of my personal growth I can attribute to some of the discussions that we had, on Wednesday night.
Yeah, man. Well, me too. I honestly, that first Wednesday we did, I know Ryan was there. I can't remember if you were there and Dylan was there, but old Ryan shows up, right? And I knew a bunch of the people there, but I didn't know Ryan. He shows up with a stack of books. There was a Bible. There was maybe I don't even know, some very conservative theologians all stacked up. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is going to be a train wreck. But it wasn't,
Yeah.
It never was. No one ever stormed out. We always had people of differing opinions, and it really was a remarkable thing that I don't know if I could replicate again, because I think it was partially the space that we had created at the Foundry. It certainly, Cheney had a big part in that, and he and I's relationship, kind of being really close, but having differing opinions about things. And we were able to kind of bear that out in the conversations. Like, look, we're like best buds, and he has guns and I'm a pacifist. And, right. I think everybody's gun should be thrown in the river, and he's out there shooting hogs and then bringing me pulled pork from the hogs that he shoots. And I was eating it. So, it was a beautiful time. And I think I certainly was formed through it as well.
Yes. A lot of good times. Is there anything that you're working on right now, coffee related, that you would like to get, out there?
I'm not, man. I'm really excited to build some relationships with the guys at First Village. My church that I'm serving now, All Saints Episcopal Church, sits in this very affluent little village. I'm still trying to understand how all the different towns in New York are labeled, and there's towns and villages and hamlets and cities, and all of those mean things to New Yorkers, and they don't necessarily mean anything to me. But I'm in this village. I think there's 7,000 residents, but it's very affluent. Okay. Like my neighbor's house is for sale for like $3 million. So it's that's the church I serve. And what I have found is that while they are an amazing church, they're really great at serving some of the towns around us have very much the working poor and even some homeless folks. My church is really great at serving people in poverty, but they're not so great at being connected to the wider community. And so that's my focus, and really connecting, finding First Village and finding Luis as kind of a kindred spirit has been a beautiful thing that I hope to really kind of dial in on and help my church learn what community can look like.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So switching gears a bit.
Yeah.
In the time that you've been with Jeff, what has been your favorite memory?
So, I can think of a few that are really different. Certainly my favorite music memory, there is when we've done our Northeast tours, there's this kind of punk rock scene just outside of Baltimore. And this band Braceface had this house, and they have a basement, and they do all these house shows. And we played with them, with some of those guys at a venue in Baltimore. And then the next year played at the house. And it never in my life have I seen a better analogy of what the kingdom of God is supposed to look like, what the church should look like, than at this punk show.
Yep.
And it's just incredible. People of all races and walks of life, all ethnicities, people of both male and female and non-binary folks, and straight folks, people that look like frat boys, people with purple mohawks. Man, it's just an incredible scene. And I keep up with some of those people still. And they welcomed us in as family. And this guy, Josh, who we got connected with when we first booked our first show. And anyway, just a really great family. And then, the other completely different thing. Jeff and I got to be really good friends. I did his wedding before we started playing together.
Okay.
But, and both of our wives had this desire to be gestational carriers, so surrogates, but it wasn't their eggs, so they were just kind of like the incubator, if you will. And both of them were gestational carriers at the same time, both for same-sex couples. And so we kind of all got to share that together, and still really kind of do. And so that was playing in a band should always be kind of like a family kind of feel. And it really is. Jeff is like my brother, the guys that I played with. I mean, we haven't had a show in a year, but we still have our band thread going. Yeah. We still send really bad dad jokes to each other and talk about life. And, Gabe, one of our old guitar players, lives in Phoenix, Arizona. We still talk to him. And Justin, our first bass player, who everybody calls bass player prime, lives back in Tallahassee. We all still have these conversations because we're just like a big family.
Right. So to close everything out, I always like to ask, what is your favorite location for Beans and Breakdowns?
Ooh, right now, I'm kind of a city boy, but we live on like 2 acres. And so we have this really beautiful back porch, and it looks out the Astors, the New York Astors. One of them had a house across the street from my church, and the property goes all along the back behind our house. And it's just like the woods. And so my wife and I like to sit on our porch at this table, drink coffee, and we have one of those weird speaker lights that's Bluetooth.
Yeah.
And so, man, I like totally old man it out, and we sit there, and I have a hummingbird feeder, and they don't seem to be bothered by my music, which is weird. And we watch the chipmunks and the birds, and drink coffee and listen to good tunes.
That was not at all what I was going to expecting.
I know, man. It's this. We talked about this idea of we have no idea how long we're going to be here. Could be 5 years, could be 20, but we want to embrace this time of living differently than we've ever done, because we've always lived in more urban areas.
Right.
And so we're embracing living in the woods, man.
That's awesome.
Birds. Yeah.
I'm a bit jealous. I living in the city has drained me a bit. So it's
got to get out into nature.
Exactly.
I'm realizing, every once in a while you got to get some dirt on your feet. I think it's very grounding.
Yes.
Literally and figuratively. That's my dad.
You need the grocery store feet. That's how you know you've been out doing some hard work.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, thank you so much for hanging out with me, talking about coffee, hardcore punk. It's been a real pleasure.
Yeah, dude. It was good to see your face.
Likewise. Take care. Tell the family. Everybody said what's up.
Yep. Tell your lovely wife I said hello.
Take care. Thanks again for listening to Beans and Breakdowns. I'd like to say a special thanks to Kevin for coming on the podcast and catching up with me, talking about music, about coffee, and everything that's going on in his life right now. You can find Jeff Two Names music on any of the major streaming platforms like Spotify and Apple Music, so go and show them some love. If you've enjoyed the podcast, please subscribe and leave a review. Also, to keep up with guest announcements, merch releases, and just general info, check us out on Instagram at Beans and Breakdowns, and also on the web at beansandbreakdowns.com. Thanks again for tuning into Beans and Breakdowns. And until next week, stay caffeinated and wake the fuck up.